All right, welcome to Frontline, the podcast hosted by Carya Venture Partners. I'm your host and GP of the fund, Andrés, and we're going to discuss Nexad today. So we're joined by the founder, Jason, and we're going to talk all about in conversation Gen AI advertising. So, Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, about what the company's doing, and then we can kick it off from there.
Sounds awesome. Thank you so much, Andres. It's the first time I see you pronounce your name like that. Super
Oh,
cool. Jason, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Nexad, and we are building the first ad network for GenAI internet. So basically, we'll put context-aware and real-time generated ads into applications like chatbots, generative image applications, generative video applications, and etc. And very proud to have Andres backing us.
awesome. No, we're very happy to be on the cap table and have you on this journey. So I guess, my main question and the first one that I wanted to get started with is, why do you want to build Nexad? What have you seen in the industry that told you that this is the right time for this technology? And, what were some of those signs?
Yeah, no, great question. Because ads is not a field that's very hot in Silicon Valley, right? Like for the past, 5-6 years, there has not been, any exciting new startup, big opportunities popping up. And it's sort of contrarian when we first to pitch the idea. But we are seeing a big platform shift.
Yeah.
So new ads opportunities typically happen when the attention of users start to shift from a traditional platform to a new platform, right? Past examples include, in the early 2000s when people's attention start to shift from, TVs, radios to the internet, right? There are tons of ads companies like, Google, Meta start to pop up, right? And in the early 2010s, when people's attention start to shift from PC to mobile, we also see a wide array of different companies like AppLovin they're very hot today. And we are seeing another platform shift nowadays, is that people's attention are shifting from the traditional static content to dynamically generated GenAI content. And it's a very fundamental change comparable to the two previous trends, two shifts we're seeing. And we see it's probably one of the biggest opportunities that's brought by AI, and also not yet fully realized by Silicon Valley venture startup community.
Yeah.
And so this is what make us extremely excited about this.
So what this reminds me of is kind of the old Uber story about how it was the iPhone and then the ability to have GPS location on the iPhone that actually made Uber possible. So it sounds like this is a little bit of a paradigm shift in the world of ads. And I think, what's funny, I think, seeing what happened in Q4 with AppLovin, ads are kind of in people's minds. So I think this is a question that, people will start to try to answer probably in the next few years. And the whole thing with a startup is you kind of want to time the market appropriately. So sometimes when it feels that you're early, it's actually when you're just right on time.
Yeah.
So to that end, how has the adoption been so far? I mean, I'm assuming it takes a little bit of customer education to get people to understand, what is this paradigm shift? How can you actually monetize it? Especially with some of these, legacy advertisers, they're probably still seeing conversational AI as something that's yet to be proven out. So how do you convince them to do that? And where are you guys at with the adoption?
We get this question a lot. AI is still in its burgeoning phase. But I think for a business like us, like tackling a huge market, we can only do it too early, but not too late, right? If everyone sees the potential, it will be definitely too late of an early stage startup like us to work on this. And luckily, we are already seeing a lot of tractions, and people from both sides of the marketplace that we're building have shown very strong interest. We are already working with some of the biggest advertisers, public companies, like DSPs or demand-side platforms. They are basically aggregators of advertisers and also affiliate networks.
Yep.
We sign contract with many public companies to get access to their ad supply. On the other hand, on the AI product side, we also are working with some of the biggest AI, GenAI applications out there. For example, Talkie with more than 10 million users, and some other application with a few million users. And they have been actually long looking for solutions like what we're building. Like, previously they are trying some legacy ads product, but all like GenAI is a radically different content format. And whenever you have a new content format, you want to have ads that integrates well into it. Let's say when you have Twitter, right, which is a new content format, you want the ad to look like a tweet, like a promoted tweet.
Yep.
If you put like YouTube ads into it, it will feel very bad, like bad for user experience, bad for monetization. And that's what we're seeing on many of the GenAI consumer app right now. They have pretty good traffic, but they don't have a good way to monetize.
Yeah.
And we are exactly providing the very in context, feels AI native kind of ad solution that they're looking for. So very good traction on both sides. Of course, we have a lot to grow, but we're seeing very good early signs.
This brings me to an interesting point. I know you've been working with one of our portfolio companies, Dippy. And Dippy has been a super interesting kind of experience for us because it kind of started as a weekend project, and then this really blew up on the conversational kind of companion bot side. How do you see smaller companies or kind of more nascent projects like Dippy versus some of these larger projects or larger companies, better said, adopting to this? I mean, is everyone as kind of hair on fire looking for something like this? Do you find that some of the earlier projects are more willing to integrate ads and then kind of grow with you on the platform? Are some of the larger guys scared to interject these ads into the conversational flow? How do you feel that they're responding to it, especially like comparing on the size?
I would basically juxtapose, let's say, the legacy huge consumer apps that right now, and versus the next wave of GenAI applications. And we are seeing very different market dynamics out there. Right. So for the last generations of huge consumer apps, they typically do vertical integration themselves, right? Facebook, TikTok, they have a very complex set of monetization techniques, and they integrate well into their product, and it's working well. But we're seeing the next generation of AI applications. More and more people are looking for external partnerships, and we're also seeing a more diverse array of applications that's not as centralizing or monopolistic as the traditional consumer app market. Of course, there are tons of reasons to it. I think the fundamental reason is that the new consumer applications is more so of it feels like a game where the user interact directly with a model, as compared to a marketplace where you bootstrap two-sided, like everyone naturally gravitate towards one player that dominates the whole market. We're seeing a whole array of very interesting solutions like Dippy, Talkie. Like each of them are tackling similar scenario, but have different taste. And like they appeal to a different group of users, right? In this market dynamic, actually higher demand for a third-party solution of advertisement that we are providing. Right? This is similar to the market mechanism of AppLovin, right? They're serving a diverse range of different mobile games, and a very efficient marketplace. AppLovin is very empowering to those games.
Right. And so I think this is kind of the $1,000,000 question here is, it makes a lot of sense for advertisers. It makes a lot of sense for the platforms, right? It's kind of putting them together where the challenge lies. So, and I'm sure you've spent a lot of time thinking about this question, but how do you actually provide the most relevant and tailored ads to the end users? And more specifically, ads can be super targeted. They can be, super relevant to the conversation at hand, but you kind of almost want to make it seem like it's not an ad. How do you walk that thin line? And maybe what are some of the product decisions that you've made that, first of all, differentiate Nexad from anyone else that could want to try this because of that specific balance? And then what are some of the things that then make, both the advertisers and the platforms, more excited to bring you on board because that you're not going to disturb or, break that flow of conversation that you're having with the end user?
Yeah, great question. That's that's a lot of points. Let me tackle from the maybe high level and more granular level. So on the high level, we see. By the way, we're not only working on chatbots per se, right? We are also working with some very exciting new applications that are generative video, generative image, but we see two fundamental difference on this new generative AI content format as compared to traditionals. The first is that it's more interactive, right? Like, chatbot is an easier to understand question. Like, it's we get a very rich set of context from the user, right? The user tell in granular detail what they want to see, and they can interact the content, customize the content with much higher level of control than ever before, right? And the second thing is that all the content based on the very granular context that the user have, are being generated in real time. Those two things that are fundamental to all the GenAI content format are crucial and fundamentally revolutionizing to advertising, right? The richer the context is, the more detailed information we can get from what the user actually wants.
Right.
And once we use it, once we know what the user actually wants, we can match them with the most relevant, the most helpful, the most seamless, the best user experience ad that's out there, right?
Yeah.
And also, because all the content are being real-time generated and customized, this provides us a very natural way to provide, real-time generated ads that fits perfectly into the context.
Yeah.
So this is also something that's have not really been done at this level in the last generation of ads, right? For example, this 18-year-old high school student who's into soccer is talking about Cristiano Ronaldo with telling the video generation app to generate a cool shot about Cristiano Ronaldo chatting with a chatbot, and we can put ads. Let's say we're working with Nike, for example, and we can put relevant information to say that Cristiano Ronaldo is wearing this specific form of Nike shoes in the last soccer match.
Yeah.
Right. So we allow advertisers to put very in context, very real-time generated, very granular, customized, seamless ads into this new content format. Right. And those two things are never possible before.
Right.
That's on a high level what's the value we're offering. On a more technical level, how are we doing this? So we first will have a pipeline. We get relevant context data from the publishers who are working with all those AI applications on what the user is actually discussing in a privacy preserving way. We are making a lot of innovations so we can have very granular information about what the user is interested in without revealing the actual personal identifiable information or those sensitive stuff from the user. We use that information to do the ads matching. So this part is more similar to what Apple Living or Google has been built in house. We have our own ads matching engine tailored to the GenAI context.
Yep.
And finally, we have our ads rendering engine. So once we select this product that we think is perfect for the scenario, we generate the ads creative in real time to fit the context and to provide a seamless user experience. One specific product choice you've mentioned is that whether we want to make the ads fits perfectly into the conversation. So the user doesn't even know that's an ad.
Yeah.
So it's actually a decision that we work with the publisher together.
Yeah.
So in the US, we're required by law that you must indicate this is sponsored content. So this is baseline. We also want to do the thing that's abide for law, right?
Yeah.
But for some other publishers, they have different forms that they want to present in some other countries. So our technology is very flexible enough so that we can support whatever way they want to present the ads in a law-abiding way. But in general, we actually found out that it's better to show that this is an ad.
Yeah.
Does it actually enhance the trust of the user to the application?
Interesting. That actually brings me to a question that I had, which is very related to this. You have different stakeholders when you're kind of making this decision of presenting an ad. Right, you've got the advertiser, you've got the platform, right, or whether that's conversational AI, whether that's video, whether that's image, whatever it may be, and then you have the end user, right? So all of them have kind of different maximizing functions, right? The end user, obviously there's times where the ad would actually be very helpful to them, but typically users don't like ads, right?
Yeah.
So, and then for example, there's the advertiser wants to make sure, especially if this is a distributor, that the ads are distributed evenly between, say, whatever, Airbnb, Apple, and, Nike, just to give you a few examples. How do you balance the different functions between the three stakeholders, right? Because, for example, say that, and I'm just using conversational AI because I think it's the easiest example to follow. Say that I am, talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, right? And I'm super into soccer, right? And I'm asking the platform a million things about Ronaldo and, all the different soccer teams, etc. How do you decide when the right time is, for example, and then that's an easy time for you to interject with Nike ads, right? Or Adidas or whatever it is. Do you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to balance the type of ad that's being presented to then say hey, we talked a lot about Nike, which is great. Now you have to talk about Airbnb. How do you handle that?
No, that's an awesome question. And it's like a constant theme in the
Yeah.
world of programmatic ads, right? How do you
Right.
balance between user experience and monetization?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
yeah,
probably the right to exactly. That's a great way of summarizing it. Right.
yeah. And in our scenario, it's even more interesting. And we have developed a custom pipeline
Okay.
that easily allows publishers, aka AI applications,
Yeah.
to make the trade-off.
Okay.
So let's say I'm chatbot one. I want to, really squeeze every penny out of my users. Like I don't care about retention or whatever. So I will just, set this parameter lambda in our system so that we will emphasize more on basically the expected payout
Yeah.
of the ad.
Yeah.
Right. In many cases, it can be have nothing to do with the user is interesting. It can be,
Interesting. So that's okay. So that's a big factor into that equation is the maximizing payout side.
for example, some mobile games like those sort of disruptive games that you like, addictive games you see
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yeah.
They're very high paying.
Sure.
When you download it, it's full of ads. It's sort of like they're making a lot of money from the
Yeah,
users, but they're not necessarily something the user is originally interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But if you show a lot of those ads, user will download, you'll make money. So that's it. Some other publishers, they might want to play a different game where
Yeah.
want to have higher retention and want to monetize the user over a longer time horizon. Then our system allows them to easily choose more weight
Yeah.
on the perceived relevance and the user experience of the ad.
Yeah.
Right. Like when the user is talking about soccer, we give them like a Nike shoes ad. When the user is interested in, let's say, certain brand of game, like we recommend very, very relevant games that are not necessarily high paying,
Yeah.
but are very relevant. The user will probably enjoy as content.
Yeah.
This is a trade-off and prioritization. We build an infrastructure that allows our publisher to fully choose on
Right.
their own. We want to be the best monetization partner to the next wave of GenAI consumer apps.
Totally. And are those payouts like those payout rates variable? For example, say that we are talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, right? And then at the start of that conversation, the payout for Nike was really really high, right? But then we already spoke about Nike, right? And then the Adidas payout may be a little bit lower because you've already been presented by a Nike one. Like, how do you work with that variability? Because at any moment of time, right, I may be more likely to click through an ad or not.
Yeah.
Does that?
Yeah, 100%. Like if we put Cristiano Ronaldo ad into every response of the chatbot, the
Yeah,
remaining
even if the payout was like higher because they're the people that want to pay the most for ads. Like, there's times where it'll be different, right?
Yeah, 100%. So we also build this ECPM prediction pipeline. So ECPM is basically when I present this ad here, what's the expected earning that we can get?
Right.
And this is influenced by trillions of different things,
sure.
like what the user is talking about, what's the ad load that the user have been seeing, like how many ads have been showing this conversation. As you said, if we constantly see one ad, the marginal return of seeing that it's like definitely declining.
Yeah.
It's a complex machine learning pipeline that we use all the information we get to predict. So yeah, definitely all of those factors you mentioned are taken into account.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting because it's one of those, I feel like Nexad is one of those products or companies that the more you look into it, the more complicated it gets. Which is actually, it's very funny because it actually reminds me of when we were building Sonus a lot. Because for us, it was like, oh, real-time accent translation. Sure, it's like, you describe it in a second or two. But then, like, the more you break it down, it's like, all right, there's a lot of complexities
complex.
that go into it. For example, like, I hadn't thought about the variable payouts, right?
Yeah.
But that makes total sense, and it's actually something that you probably have to have, very dialed into the model.
Yeah. And we haven't even talked about the real-time bidding stuff.
Well, yeah. That's actually yeah. So because the payout side, that actually brings me to that. It's,
the bidding.
There has to be a platform for the ads to bid in real time, but then in differing to, for example, what an AppLovin does or what
Very different.
Yeah. So your time horizons for an AppLovin are a lot longer, right? Here, the variability between payouts are condensed in a much shorter time horizon because the conversation is flowing.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm just using conversation as an
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
The conversation is flowing between me and the chatbot. At which point in a 5-minute conversation, the time the payouts could vary wildly.
Yeah.
Right, because when I'm talking to the chatbot, I'm saying like, hey, I really want to go to Spain this summer. that's going to be a very different ad payout for Airbnb versus Nike.
Yeah, 100%. So like, let's say most of the traditional ad systems
Yeah.
are not very intent specific, right? Like
Yeah.
you scroll on, Instagram, you see like a fashionable clothes, but that's nothing to do with a specific story that you have just read.
Right.
But in GenAI, due to this unique feature, it's very interactive. Users are much more intentful, and we can use that information to, very effectively match it with things people might enjoy.
Right.
And so it's like merging two worlds, like the whole GenAI pipeline with the traditional ads, auction, bidding, eCPM, prediction stuff. Engineering wise, it's also a pretty non-trivial thing to build.
Yeah.
And, I'm very happy that we already, shipped this system.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's fascinating. It's kind of like a market within a market.
Yeah, exactly. And also I want to talk a little bit more about the GenAI part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Please,
It's
please.
especially the, generative ads, real-time ads generation.
Right.
It might sound very simple, right? Like you have the context, you just prompt the LLM to say, to say the ads in a very context relevant way and put it into it. But LLM is not just an API, right? It's
Yeah.
like a very complex thing that you can play around with, and it's also very important that we have built this data flywheel around the LLMs, not only around the ad matching algorithm, right? The more ads click data you have, the better the prediction will be. But also the ad generation part is
Yeah.
a new data flywheel that we can build up with new technology.
Yeah.
So for example, companies like Carya AI, for example,
Yeah.
they have built a whole post-training pipeline.
Yep.
So they will use the user conversation data to tune their internal LLM, so they can significantly improve the retention and other performance metrics. The intuition behind that is that the LLM can learn from past conversations and learn how to intrigue the users even more.
Yeah.
Right? So this is something that's pretty hard to prompt, but with a large amount of data,
Yeah.
LLM can learn literally anything. Right? It's extremely powerful. And similarly for us, we can teach the LLM, for this type of users, you need to present this ad in this way. Right? When you say the ad in this way, it might be a little bit concerning. The user maybe will click, but they will not, keep using the product because it might be a bit disruptive.
Yeah.
And the LLM is able to learn the optimal way of presenting the ad
Yeah.
that's achieve a good balance between user retention and monetization efficiency in the long term.
Right.
So this is also something that's fundamental. That's, I found extremely exciting in the ads industry. What we're doing is fundamentally merging the ads engine, the ad system, and the creative agencies.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You see, for people who are not that familiar with the ad industry, right now, the ads engine, the ad system is separate from the people who make the ad.
Totally.
That when you want to buy some ads on Instagram, you hire someone or do it in-house to make a picture of your product and you insert, right? But it will not be the case in the future because in the future, the AI is much more effective in generating those creatives. And also, most importantly, AI can learn from the large amount of user feedback data.
Yeah.
Who has those user feedback data? It's the ad systems.
Yeah.
So the ad systems themselves, the ads engines, they are able to generate ads creative in a with much better quality and much better effect than the traditional marketing agencies. So we are doing both at the same time.
Yeah. It's funny because we've spent a lot of time together kind of thinking about a lot of this stuff, but just having this conversation now makes me think of all the other things that you can kind of do in terms of fifth horizon type thing. So I'm just thinking the whole gaming industry, right? When GenAI does eventually make its way into, say, responsive worlds or any of that sort, I can imagine free-to-play games being, powered by Nexad because, hey, you have a villain that's wearing Nike shoes or whatever it is, right? And it's almost scary how good it can get, right? And like how intuitive and how immersive.
Yeah.
But that's, at the end of the day, that's how you build a billion-dollar business here.
Yeah. It could feel a little bit creepy, but I think we want to do the good things, right? Like
And by the way, instead of, I actually wouldn't use the word creepy, I would just say immersive.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because you actually don't want to feel like it's an ad.
100%.
Just to give you the kind of, age-old gaming example is Fortnite, right? They have partnerships with, keep bringing up Nike, but they've got partnerships with Nike and Snoop Dogg and whoever. It's like, it's not necessarily an ad, but you are getting a bit of the same effect as if you were to see a billboard on the 101,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So I think that immersion is really what you're also trying to maximize in a big way.
Yeah, yeah. I think immersion is a great way to feel it. I think the value I can break it down to the end user into two
Yeah.
ways. The first is that it facilitates a flow of information. Like previously, you don't even know this product. I mean, the product exists and it can be very helpful to you. It's something you've been waiting for.
Yeah.
So it's actually make your life better while making some more money. The other is that it's actually the foundation of a vibrant and booming ecosystem for GenAI apps.
Yeah.
And how like ads has been powering the large generations of the internet without a valid business model, all those creators, all those apps, websites, they will be go out of business. And there's because consumers they don't really want to pay for things, right? Like ads is a much more successful business model. And we see this trend will continue in the Gen AI world as the marginal cost of generating AI content keep declining exponentially. We have to figure out how we monetize the attention that's put on those contents.
Yep.
It's just a thing that makes the industry thrive in
Yep.
the long term. But on the other hand, I do acknowledge that ad industry is a field with a lot of short-term temptations. Right? There are many sketchy advertisers. We are able to work with, but we choose not to work with.
Totally.
Right? They're very high paying,
Totally.
and we want to respect the privacy and the experience of the end users.
Right.
So I mean, I totally understand now why Google would have the value of don't do evil.
Yeah,
right? It
yeah,
actually
yeah,
makes a
yeah.
lot
Oh,
of
yeah,
sense.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, and I guess that actually leads to my probably next and final question. What has been the most difficult thing about building Nexad? And what I mean by that is like, not from like whatever raising funding or a hiring standpoint, more so, what is the main risk that you really want to underwrite? Like if you could, wave a wand and have a miracle happen and have something solved or underwritten, what would that be?
Yeah, that's
I know that's a loaded
yeah.
question, but as investors, I think we always think about that. What are the miracles that have to happen for this business to work out? And it's funny. I mean, some businesses have had 7 or 8 miracles that they've had to work out, and some founders are able to get all 8 through, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just curious from your side. What are those miracles? What are the things that you're trying to underwrite?
Yeah, 100%. First of all, nothing is easy building this, very revolutionary company.
Totally.
We are building many, many things simultaneously,
Yeah.
and it's extremely fun for sure. For the risk we want to underwrite the most is probably on the publisher side. How do we iterate and experiment with large amount of data very effectively?
Yeah.
Right. We already signed and working with many very successful publishers, but I think to find the optimal presentation of that, it
Yeah.
takes some mutual trust and co-exploration. Yeah, I think so. It's already we're doing many experiments with our beloved partners, but faster iterations on that side, bigger traffic from that side would really facilitate both sides of the marketplace that we're building, and also the more data will lead to better ads outcome, and
Yeah.
it creates like a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that positive feedback loop is something that's going to be extremely exciting for you guys
Yeah.
to kind of start spinning that flywheel,
Yeah.
because it's very much a proof is in the pudding type question, and it also gives you more leverage too when you are working with these advertisers in terms of the levers that you can yourself pull
100%.
in order to make it also like you'll just because this is kind of an unknown space. There's no map that guides you in terms of like, hey, like when should you show this ad or whatever, everything we just talked about.
Yeah.
So the more time that you spend building this business out, you're gonna, I think, uncover a very beautiful thing, which is you're gonna be the only person or like the only group of people, shall I say, that really understand how to make this business work.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me because people say, picks and shovels of AI and everyone thinks about, different data infrastructure or whatever. But like this is it, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is
The pick and shovel you need.
how do you monetize, right? And I think that's been a huge question for so many platforms is, because AI I think is very, very different to kind of more traditional SaaS, especially outcome based AI. it's expensive to run, right? Like these models are expensive to train, or they're expensive to run an inference. So you're kind of providing this answer of, hey, like we make your business a viable business model.
Yeah,
So
I know.
it's funny how, when people think of picks and shovels, again, they think about different elements, but this to me is definitely one that's very core, and
Yeah,
we're very happy to be investors in the journey with you.
it's awesome to work with you guys for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I think that's all for today. Jason, thank you so much for spending the time.
Thank you so much, Andres.
Again, this is the Frontline podcast by Carya Venture Partners. We're investors in everything from AI infra, applied AI, CX AI, and voice AI. So yeah, we've been very excited to work with Jason and continue the journey. So thank you guys for tuning in, and see you on the next one.
Thank you so much. Take care.